Donald Trump is a mess.
Okay, well, there's that.
A hot ass mess right now. Here's why I'm saying that. One, who knows who they have turning out? They've outsourced their turnout operations to Elon Musk in Pennsylvania, as you just mentioned. Elon Musk is not like an expert in election turnout. He might be able to build a car, which nobody wants anymore. He might be able to build a rocket, but he cannot turn out voters. We just don't know that he's ever done that before. We know that he has never done that before. We don't know he's figured it out. So,
so far we hear that he hasn't, because they're hiring other contractors who apparently are going door knocking and don't know who they're knocking doors for.
I'm checking my fictional watch because election day is like upon us. Yeah. I don't understand what they're doing. What's up, Nayyera? It's election day in America.
Almost.
Yes.
I voted. Did you already vote?
I didn't vote. So I am going to go. I was going to go this weekend to go vote. And then I didn't go vote over the weekend because I kept getting sidetracked by various things. Mostly also, so I'm taking my daughter to go vote tomorrow. I really want to go with my daughter tomorrow. She's 5. And I wanted her, she'll kind of maybe remember this, but I wanted to be able to tell her she went to go vote for Kamala Harris one day. She voted for the first woman of color to be president of the United States. I figure that might be something she cares about. So I'm going to do it together.
I took my daughter to vote with me, and my daughter, as I like to say, could be Kamala because she is herself the daughter of a South Asian woman and a Black man.
Yes.
And my daughter was just running up and down the hall in the gym at the rec center, enjoying herself. And I was like, okay, well, I'll tell her something about this moment, but she wasn't exactly plugged in.
I know. Like, I feel bad because I'm not taking my son, but he's been to vote with me before, and I kind of feel like he'll be over it. He'll be okay.
That really is, though, the paradigm we're dealing with in this election is the women/girls, right? Activated, turning out to vote. Dudes,
yeah, look,
dudes like, been there, done that, but stay home.
Look, I was just checking out, I know that there's a lot happening right now. Who knows what's happening in this thing. We're not going to try to predict, but I do think
we do know what's happening, not the predictions.
This is an interesting thing. I was looking at the Target Smart early vote numbers, and the number that is compelling to me is in early vote, 53% of the votes, 37 million people who have voted, are women. 53% of the vote. 44% of the vote are men, right? And that is about what it was in 2020. It's hard to make the comparisons to 2020, but the percentages are about the same. And so if you think that
traditionally early vote does skew Republican in male. So that's why this number is very interesting, because it's showing a shift in who's turning out even in the early vote period.
Well, this year it is. Yeah, this year it is screwing. And I think also what we know is not only is it 8 or 9 points for Kamala Harris, 8 or 9 points more female, Kamala Harris is polling significantly better among women, sometimes as high as 20 points, better with women than Donald Trump is. So if the electorate is more female, Kamala Harris is more likely to be the next president of the United States. And ladies,
we're doing our part. Oh, trust me. We're having those conversations. I mean, there's some of those conversations are women who are actively saying, I'm going to cancel out my husband's vote. You and I've had the experience where I've gone door knocking, like, hey, can I talk to the Democrat in your house? And they're like, there ain't no Democrats here. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry. Must have the wrong door, guy. Sorry, guy. Must have the wrong door. But the idea of
on my list for some reason.
How women are turning out this cycle, and that enthusiasm, goes back to the first time that abortion was on a ballot in a significant way, right? Kansas, massive turnout in this state that everyone looks at from the outside as deeply conservative. It's like, well, deeply conservative, except for when you come for women's reproductive rights, right? Like that was the issue, was considered settled law. And then you want to throw that back in to states to now deal with it at the states because the federal government isn't going to give protections. Well, the states are getting active and women are doing that. In Maryland, where there's a concern about split ticket voting between the former governor, a county executive who are both running for Senate. The Republican former governor is actively saying, "Oh yeah, vote for Walz, vote for Harrison Walz, of course, and vote for me." Like, blah blah blah. This is they're openly campaigning to undermine Trump while also still trying to win in a state where abortion is literally on the ballot as a constitutional amendment for protecting abortion rights in the state. So when abortion's on the ballot, Democrats win. When abortion is an issue, women are turning out. What do you make, though, of the fact that Donald Trump in his closing week is busting out Elon Musk to try to win Pennsylvania? Like, is Pennsylvania going to shift or go for him because the white dudes online who are really into Elon are going to show up to vote?
Let me tell you, Donald Trump is a mess.
Okay, well, then there's that.
A hot ass mess right now. Here's why I'm saying that. One, who knows who they have turning out? They've outsourced their turnout operations to Elon Musk in Pennsylvania, as you just mentioned. Elon Musk is not like an expert in election turnout. He might be able to build a car, which nobody wants anymore. He might be able to build a rocket, but he cannot turn out voters. We just don't know that he's ever done that before. We know that he has never done that before. We don't know he's figured it out. So,
so far we hear that he hasn't, because they're hiring other contractors who apparently are going door knocking and don't know who they're knocking doors for.
I'm checking my fictional watch because election day is like upon us. Yeah. I don't understand what they're doing. So one, he's a mess because of that. Two, he is just, he's obviously attacking, going after his enemies and talking about his enemies list and talking about putting guns to Liz Cheney's head and talking about all sorts of, violence. He wants to shoot through the fake media, the media press pen, shoot through them in order to get to him. So he's getting incredibly violent in a way that I think if he were a 12 or 15-year-old boy doing this online, they would send people to his house, right? The authorities would show up and the school wouldn't let him come back in. Yet this guy wants to be president of the United States. He's a mess. And then lastly, look at what he's up to. He's late to events. I just heard tonight it's like an hour and a half late to the event he's coming to. People keep leaving because he rambles on so long. He's not making sense when he's on stage.
But it's just, why is that important, right? Because at this moment, it's about having 50,000, 100,000 people show up, get so excited and enthusiastic that they then go vote for you. If not that same day, they make a plan with their friends to let's have fun and let's go vote. Instead, if what you're doing is boring people or making them just feel disconnected and not they care that much, that enthusiasm is gone. There's no translation into voter activism, which is what you need right now. Listen, Cardi B put on a party every day. Kamala Harris put on a party, getting people wanted to turn out.
It is so crazy when you watch it. I had the TV on, the sound off, and Kamala Harris rally was on, and I was like, look at that. You could just tell those people look like they're excited. They're having fun. Now, that doesn't mean they're necessarily that, she will win because they're having the most fun. But I will tell you, there is something to this. There's something to the idea of people having a candidate out there who is running a campaign that seems like it's fun. Everybody's invited to the party. Your friends and everybody is talking about it the next day when you get to work or you get to school. And I think people are starting to realize they want to get out there and, vote for this team. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is angry. He's late. He's barely jumping in and out of garbage trucks. He's having events that don't make sense. He's attacking people, different Americans from different backgrounds in different ways. He's going after the Republican, crossover voters. He's going after Puerto Ricans. He's going after everybody. So who wants to be a part of that party?
Well,
that party sucks.
You want that part? Well, okay, even if you do want to be part of that party, you want to be part of the grievance, you want to sit there and complain and bitch and moan, that has its place, but it's not. That ends up you sitting. That you end up sitting on your couch. You end up, mouthing off online. That is not an emotion or a feeling that activates you to do something positive. Voting takes effort, right? You have to be motivated to do it, and that's the conversion. Can Donald Trump actually convert? In his doubling down on the online bros with Elon Musk and all these other guys, is that actually going to convert to turnout? So we're already seeing it happen with women. I mean, Iowa should have Trump freaked out more than just a little bit right now.
Absolutely. It should have them more freaked out. And because we really are seeing a gender gap there, right? I think it's like 20% advantage with women, 14% advantage with men for Donald Trump, 20% advantage for women with Kamala Harris. If that trend holds, she wins.
Mm-hmm.
Women are the largest part of the electorate. She's winning them by 20 points. He's only winning men by 14, which is a smaller part of the electorate. The math ain't hard.
Mm-hmm.
She wins.
Well, this is where it's different. We're going to remind each other that in the Hillary Trump election, 52% of white women voted for Trump. Everyone's like, oh my God, how did that happen? It's like, yeah, well, there's all sorts of people voting against their own interests because they want to uphold different political systems. Sure. 2020, it was 48% of white women voted for Trump. So the number went down, but it was still, listen, other
There were more
women.
raw votes for him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that if that shifts, right, and if that's the shift that we're seeing, and it hasn't been picked up in polling so far, you really only see this with actual ballot counting or actually talking to people who are at the exit polls. That's going to make for a dramatic night. But in terms of the night itself, Jamal, thinking Virginia, right? If Virginia is going to be in like that 7 o'clock hour Eastern, that is expected to go for Harris. If it doesn't, then Harris supporters are in for a rough night.
Yeah, if Kamala Harris doesn't win Virginia, it's not going to be great. I can remember in 2016 being on set at Yahoo with Katie Couric, and I remember watching the votes sort of start to come in. You know who else was there that night? It's funny. You know who else was there that night? Was J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was there that night, and he was like kind of anti-Trumpy. I got to tell you, he wasn't like a Trump fan.
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Certainly off camera, he was not. He was anti-Trumpy. But anyway, so we were all sitting there, and it starts to not. Virginia is slow to come in, and I just remember Katie Couric looks at me and she's like, "What's going on in Virginia?" And so I had to be like, "Oh, well, I think that." Meanwhile, I'm texting people like, what the hell's going on in Virginia?
Right. So that
was the first sign this wasn't going to be great.
All right. So that's the first sign. Virginia goes for Harris. Then we're looking in the 7:30 Eastern hour, which North Carolina counts pretty quickly, is the anticipation that North Carolina being a swing state, if she gets Virginia, North Carolina, it's a great night. If she doesn't get North Carolina, then later around like 9 o'clock, that's the Pennsylvania piece of the equation, right?
Yeah, but I want everybody to just, be prepared to not know these dates for a while. Even though like last time they came in early, this time they might take a little bit longer because all the networks, AP, are a little nervous about calling a state before everything's in because people want to make sure every vote is counted. Yeah. And I think what's happening, the Trump argument is this is all going to be decided on Tuesday night at the latest on Thursday. If it happens past Thursday, something's wrong. That is not true. Let me tell you something. I am the older person here. I remember in 2000 when Al Gore was running against George W. Bush, the Republican argument was they wanted these military ballots that came in from overseas to be counted. And they said, how dare we stop Americans from having their ballots counted just because they were overseas? So let me just say this. How dare we stop Americans who voted on Monday or Tuesday from having their ballots counted just because somebody else voted on Friday and the ballot comes in on Tuesday? So if you vote on Tuesday, your ballot might not show up in the office till Thursday or Friday. We need to give that some time. But here's
however, it is a
how
numbers
many ballots
game.
are out stake. We'll know how many ballots are out there. So there may be a point where even if you say 100% of the ballots get returned, there's no way that this candidate can win. So just everybody, it's a little bit complicated math. I'm just saying
it's the reality of like you actually need to count all the things. But at a certain point, when you have a majority, you know that you've got 90% of it in. That other 10% ain't going to change too much, right? Based on what that 90% is. The other data point then is given the undermining of the system and trust in the system that has been actively done by the Trump campaign and Trump himself, every state is going to dot their I's, cross their T's. Nobody wants to be what ended up happening in Arizona last time where, the Fox News called it accurately, but then the Trump campaign makes a phone call and then everyone gets upset and they're like, well, is it back in the mix? Is it not? And then an entire company, a voting system company, gets disparaged. They file a lawsuit. Like it made everything mayhem for a major network, for a major voting company, and for an entire state. Right. So that's going to be the idea: is how do these volunteers and civil servants keep things on the up and up, knowing that they're going to have Trumpists breathing down their neck.
Yeah, look, this again is going to take a few days. Probably we won't know all the exact results for a while. Let's take Nevada as an interesting case. In Nevada, in the Senate election in 2022, we didn't know the Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto won that election for days because she had to wait for the absentee ballots to come in. 36,000 absentee ballots came in, and she surged ahead and she won. It's a lot of absentee ballots, right? So not only did the ballots come in, then they have to cure the ballots. So by curing the ballots, it means, let's say you're supposed to sign it or the signatures don't match between your voting card and the signature that's on the ballot. They then have you come in and verify that it is you, it is your ballot, and then they keep it. That takes a couple of days sometimes. That's going to happen in some of these states. And we want that to happen because the votes need to be counted.
Well, this is also the demand for recounts.
We can't let the Republicans try to intimidate us into a timestamp on this. It's not about being fast. It's about being accurate.
But there are trends, right? So like Virginia, North Carolina, both of those are called and again, called by the states, and then that gets mirrored by the networks.
Yeah.
If those get called, or at least predictions, that gives you a sense of how much anxiety you should be having on election night itself, right?
Totally.
But the reality is Arizona, which we just talked about last cycle, is not coming in till 9 p.m. Eastern. So that's like at least 10 p.m. that you're still dealing with Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Arizona. These are, and Wisconsin, like these are what we're talking about, the swing states of seeing which way they go. You're looking at close to midnight before anybody feels like they know what's going on.
Yeah, everybody, buckle in. It's going to be a long ride. We are going to know, though, in a few days, who the next president of the United States is. We may even have a sense of it tomorrow night.
Yep.
But
it's not going to be official. I doubt it's going to be official. Now, do you think Trump's just going to walk in and declare victory?
Yeah, he will declare victory tomorrow night. He might just wait until the first time he's ahead, right? Like, if he looks up, he's like, oh, wait a minute. There's only 5% of the vote in, and I'm winning. I'm going to go out there and declare victory and say it's mine. And then make everybody have to dial that back.
Yeah.
I think we got to put this guy on a time delay. We cannot let him just get up on camera and talk.
He's going to, that's going to be interesting. I'm curious how folks are going to fact check or sandwich that of him deciding that he's going to go out there and make his election speech, or right. It's just a tradition that we have an acceptance and a concession. It doesn't have to be that way. Trump could be speaking all night long.
Yeah.
Trump never conceded 2020. Never conceded 2020. Said just this weekend that he wished he never left the White House. So he's going to be the chaos agent tomorrow. But again, we should anticipate the chaos from him.
Donald Trump is a mess. All right, guys.
Donald Trump's a mess, folks.
Listening. Yes.
Have a good night, Jamal. We'll talk tomorrow.
Good night. See you tomorrow.